Welcome to the Veterinary Financial Podcast, where we discuss financial freedom and professional success. I'm Meredith Jones, a veterinarian and financial planner for vets.
And I'm David Aizuss. I'm also a financial planner for vets.
As we've mentioned before, David, we both work on financial planning for veterinarians, and we work with SLP Wealth. So what is a veterinarian-specific financial planner anyway?
Well, I don't know if there's an official definition in like a Webster dictionary, so I get to make up one. To me, a veterinary-specific financial planner is someone who is an expert on all the financial needs, wants, and goals, common pitfalls, common opportunities that are presented to veterinarians. Every financial circumstance in question is a financial scenario. And a vet-specific financial planner has seen hundreds, thousands of different financial scenarios that veterinarians run into, so that the next time they run into that scenario, they don't have to do a month's worth of research to maybe come up with the right answer that's fiduciary, that's in the best interest of their client. They've done that thing for clients, for similar types of clients, a million times before. So then that way, that next client who has that very common issue, or at least it is to us because we're working with all these different vets, they know they're getting the best guidance. So that's how I would define a veterinary-specific financial planner, is one who has encountered 99% of the common scenarios that a veterinarian would be in, which is different than the common scenarios that a non-vet would be in. So it's common to us because we specialize in it, but it's not common for the 99% of the financial world who doesn't work with vets.
Yeah. And for us, I mean, we've got a unique set of experiences because I'm a veterinarian myself. I worked as an emergency veterinarian for a long time, like over 12 years, and did an internship prior to that. And then David, your wife is a GP veterinarian, right?
Your credentials just made you sound like 10,000 times better than me. I've been an ER vet for 12 years, and David is married to one. But yeah, yours speak for itself. But, you know, the vet world is something that is the only industry outside of my own that I've been exposed to since I was in high school. So I eat, breathe, and live the vet world, for better or worse. And I know, and I've seen a lot. You don't want to take your cases to me. You don't want to ask me medical questions. But, you know, as far as the things that vets go through and the financial obstacles and opportunities that are presented to them, I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. And of course, most veterinarians graduate with big student loans, right? And we're both student loan nerds as well.
Yeah. One of the many reasons that, like, why is this important? Why is getting a veterinarian specific financial planner so important? It's student loans is the big and obvious one. The vast majority of the finance world out there treats student loans like an auto loan. Many a times people who are seeking professional fiduciary help would just be turned away, or just either they'll say, go pay it off and then talk to us at that point. Or they'll say, yeah, we'll work with you. What's the interest rate? How old are you? Therefore, pay it off X, Y, and Z aggressively. Which again, maybe some people should be doing that, but plenty of others should go for forgiveness, utilize an IDR plan. Do they need to consolidate? Should they specifically not? Should they be doing married filing separate for joint? All these things are common scenarios for 99% of vets, but 99% of the financial world doesn't know anything I just said.
Yeah. And some of them do know, but then maybe they're just not interested in it. You know, maybe it's just a necessary evil versus something that they're interested in keeping up with. And another thing that, and this comes from just questions that I see on the Debt Free Vets Facebook group, is people will say, well, I'm in this specific area of the country and hey, I'm looking for a financial planner, maybe one in my city who will meet with me. And do you guys know of anybody veterinary specific? And usually the answer is going to be no, because I mean, there are other veterinarian specific financial planners out there, but there just aren't, you know, there's not going to be one in every city in the country or even every state in the country. But we don't have limitations on who we can meet with, right, David?
No. If you are someone who, because this goes with not just financial planning too, a lot of people like or give value to proximity, which sometimes that's important, but most of the time it's not. And I would argue when it comes to financial planning, it's not. And I would just ask someone, do you value getting the best advice, the best financial planning, or do you value having the advice come out of a mouth who happens to be living near you? Which one do you value? So,
Mhm.
and again, this goes even beyond financial planning, but for any service a veterinarian's looking for, if proximity does not lead to a more beneficial service, then proximity doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We do Zoom meetings.
Yeah, we meet with clients on Zoom all day long, and we meet with veterinarians from all over the country. I have a client in Alaska and a couple clients in Hawaii and all over the place. And our firm is SEC registered, so they're registered with the Securities Exchange Commission, and that means that we can meet with anyone in the country for financial planning, which is awesome.
Nice. Already touched on student loans. That's a big one. But what other things are specific to veterinarians that would probably be good for your financial planner to know about? Compensation structures. Like, hey, you probably want a planner who knows what ProSal means because the vast majority of vets get paid via ProSal. How does that work? What's fake ProSal? Because honestly, a lot of employment contracts I see say they're ProSal, but they actually aren't because they have negative accrual or whatever. Or just being able to have that discussion, I think is super important, especially if you get a new job offer and you're not sure how the comp is structured. We need to negotiate one thing or another. Just having a planner understand how you get paid is probably important when it comes to planning about your finances. Meredith, what else? What's next?
Yeah, well, for sure, because when we think about most veterinarians' incomes, most vets have an irregular income. Maybe if you're on salary only, then you have a regular income and every paycheck looks the same, and it's easier to budget if you're in that situation. But the vast majority of veterinarians are on a structure that is usually it's a salary plus production pay structure, right? And you can call it ProSal or you can call it fake ProSal, but it's usually some sort of, salary plus production type structure, which means that you are either going to have a couple of paychecks that are the same each month and then a production check that could be small check, could be a big check. Or maybe you have pay that is regular, and then every quarter you have a bigger production check. And then a lot of what we're talking to people about is okay, how do we allocate those funds in the smartest way? And maybe if you're on a quarterly sort of salary plus production pay structure, then you're probably using most of your paychecks just to keep up with everyday living expenses, and then maybe some of those bigger financial goals that you have are funded by those larger production checks when you get them. So we understand that sort of structure to be able to piece that together and integrate it along with the financial plan and make it something that makes sense. And then also, of course, we meet with relief vets and mobile vets and practice owners who maybe have a different sort of pay structure, and maybe their income is even more irregular if they're the type of relief vet that works a lot for 2 weeks and then takes off a month. And there's all sorts of ways that vets can set up their income, especially if they're self-employed.
Yeah, 100%. You got an associate who also reliefs on the side. You could have 100% relief. You could be 100% relief ER. You could be an associate ER. You could do urgent care. You could be a practice, like you said. So there's probably like 10 to 20 different very common combinations and permutations that we see. And the strategies that each of them do are different, but it's all good. It's just know what box are you in that would allow you to maximize that type of income flow. Another thing that I think is important that your financial planner should know as a vet is what's going on in the industry. Industry trends, business trends specific to vet med. One thing that just pops into mind, and this is a whole other can of worms for a different podcast episode. Non-competes were supposed to go away, and now that question mark might not be the case. stay tuned for another episode on that. But that's a big deal, right? Budgeting and preparing for career transitions.
Yeah, it's huge since COVID. And yeah, a lot of vets transitioned with their career one direction or another. Could be from ER to GP, could be from large animal to small animal, could be from a clinical role to a non-clinical role, could be from ER to relief vet, GP to relief vet. There's just all different sorts of career transitions, right, for veterinarians. And a lot of folks want to talk about that. A lot of our clients are saying, hey, this is something that I want some guidance with as I'm preparing to make that transition.
I also think a big component of any financial planner is saving people from themselves. You don't know what you don't know. So there's a lot of landmines out there when it comes to investing or financial planning in general. And so we can be like, oh, you're doing great. That idea that you just had is not great, though. Here's why. And you wouldn't know about it until you made the mistake. So let's fast forward your learning so you don't have to make the mistake to learn. And so I think avoiding mistakes is a big one. And again, vets have their own unique set of common mistakes that other professions might not have. I could probably think of a few off the top of my head. Meredith, what's one of the biggest mistakes that you've seen and or have saved your client from making? What do you think?
Well, we do have a whole episode that's upcoming that is about mistakes that veterinarians make with Roth IRAs. So look out for that one. That may be the next episode after this one. But let's see, other common mistakes. Well, definitely, going back to student loans, not having an optimized student loan plan. Of course, because we work alongside Student Loan Planner, a lot of clients, some clients have already met with a consultant with Student Loan Planner, on the team and already have their student loan plan ironed out. But I do see a lot of mistakes in general through the Facebook group and through conversations that I have with vets of maybe they're on an income-driven repayment plan, but maybe it's not the one that is going to be the least expensive for them long-term. Maybe there are some strategies where they could get the payment down right now, but then switch to a different plan later, for example, or they didn't realize that they could file their taxes separately and save a ton of money. Those are common mistakes that I see.
That was a lot better than the answer I would have given. I was going to say, oh, equine vets have too many horses. I'm just kidding. I'm
Oh.
just kidding. I love working with equine vets. And if you want your own horses, that's great. They just are expensive. And I'm just giving you guys some stuff. I'm just jabbing at you guys. Okay.
That reminds me of that email that Travis sent out recently where he was talking about, for veterinarians, how to budget for the land you want for your 50 animals, right?
It's a
But
real thing.
that could be a real thing, right? Yeah. Some vets have a long-term goal of, I want to have a farm or I want to have a ranch
I
or
feel like there's two types of vets. There's the type that doesn't want a ton of animals at home because their entire life is taking care of animals. But then there's the other type of vet, but they'll still almost always have one or two. It's pretty rare I see a vet not have any animals, but they keep it under control. And then there's the other type of vet who, even though they're 24/7 working on fixing animals, they still want 10 plus animals. And therefore, we got to throw that into their home buying plan, or they have to buy a home sooner because they can't find a rental that can hold their 10 different German Shepherds or whatever. Right?
hey, yeah.
It's a thing. So let's see. What else do we got? Practice ownership. If you're a practice owner, you probably want a vet specific financial planner who's worked with other practice owners before to give them the best tips, tricks, things to do, things to look out for, different strategies. And for those who aren't a practice owner, maybe you never want to be a practice owner, that's totally fine. But I'm sure there's some vets who aren't practice owners currently who want to be, whether it be now or in the future. There are certain things that you should be doing. Like, honestly, it definitely changes your financial plan versus someone who knows that they never want to own a practice. One is not better than the other. It's just, if that's your goal, what we should be doing with your money. This is going to be a whole other episode, maybe. So I won't give too much detail on what that plan should be. It's just, it is different. Period. End of story. If you want to work towards practice ownership. What does it mean to be a board certified specialist? When to use a DVM mortgage, a doctor mortgage versus a conventional? Strategies to save the most on taxes. Like, all these things matter. And again, vets fit into different specific boxes that a lot of other people don't. And so you want to make sure you're getting advice from a source that has done it 1,000 times before. Yeah, I'll get off my soapbox. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, there you go. We actually work with over 200 veterinarians, right, David?
Yeah, and counting.
And counting. Yeah. So we have conversations about anything that has to do with finances or money. We are going to touch on it at some point. That is anything from budgeting or cash flow to talking about investing, including just the educational component of learning about investing, but then also for folks with student loans, talking about, okay, how do you save for the potential tax bomb due at the end of the forgiveness timeline, for example. Also, just revisiting, because of course, there is always something new going on with student loans. And so, revisiting that repayment strategy, revisiting the strategy and the repayment plans as life changes, as we get married or have a career transition or move to a different state or take a different job with a different income, for example, and talking about, okay, what does that look like for my student loans? And then also talking about saving for retirement and saving for the future and prioritizing financial goals too. And so that comes up a lot, right, David?
Yeah. Just to give a super concrete example of two recent conversations I had with two different clients, I think this is funny too, and can show you how different this is why personal finance is personal.
Mm-hmm.
These two conversations and what we're working on are completely different. One is actually from someone who is currently in vet school who wanted to take the step to already get their financial game plan in order previous to even graduating. So they're a step
Wow.
ahead of everybody else just for thinking about that
It's
in
amazing.
vet school. And so what we worked on is, they don't have any help from family. They need to rely on further student loan disbursements to
Mm-hmm.
eat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're running low, about to overdraft. Next disbursement isn't going to hit till October 1st. They had no clue how much was going to hit the bank account October 1st. They just knew it was going to be something, but they wanted my recommendation of, do we need to take out any private student loans to supplement his living expenses? What's the difference between private and more federal versus, oh, should we take out a personal loan and then repay? And I said, hang on. I can tell you the ways all those different loan products work. I can't tell you we're missing a big number here. What's going to hit your bank account on October 1st on the federal side? And he goes, I don't know. Well, I said, can we find that out? And he goes, yeah, there's one person in the financial aid office. I'm going to rename them. They're called Daryl, let's say. And I was like, okay, your first assignment for me is go talk to Daryl and let's find out exactly what's going to hit the account on that date. Then we can look at your cash flow and see if we can survive until then. And would we need to take anything out after, or is that going to be enough? Hopefully it's going to be enough. And then we can talk about, should we go private? Why shouldn't we, if possible? Like all that kind of stuff. So that's one conversation that needed to be had. And that was his first assignment, is go talk to Daryl. Another person already graduated, a couple years out of practice, does 100% reliefing, does very well at it, on track to make 300K next year, on track to make 225 this year, is going to work even more next year. And so our discussions and first order of business was really, but they've never opened up a solo 401k or have looked at anything like that, but they already knew a little bit about it. We had to figure out, okay, Does it make sense to do an S Corp this year? Does it make sense to do an S Corp next year? How does that impact what they could or could not contribute to their solo 401k? What would make more sense? What should we do between now and the remaining of the year versus what should it be next year when they're making even more? Very different conversation. But that's just two concrete examples of some of the things that come up that are totally different from one each other. It was my best to do task to like actually put in go talk to Daryl as like an official task for them to do. I thought that was funny.
I think that goes into just taking someone's goals and breaking them down. And I mean, your story is about breaking it down into just a very simple goal. But I mean, that is part of what we do. And then also holding our clients accountable to their goals as well. Whether or not they express that they want somebody to do that, I think that's part of the reason that someone decides to work with a financial planner as well. Yeah, I thought of something funny earlier as you were talking about differences between financial planners who are vets, familiar with veterinarians or vet specific and versus not. Is that I've heard some speakers at veterinary conferences actually use the word patient when they should be using the word client because they're talking about a person.
Yep.
And it's like, oh no, speaker, you just lost the whole audience because you said patient when you should have said client.
We know that the client is the human, the patient is the animal. I think a lot of vets wish that the animal was both the patient and the client because clients can give lots of headaches, and that's a whole other episode right there. Client horror stories, whatever.
Most of my clients are fantastic. So meaning,
no, our clients are fine. The vets' clients, they wish they were the animal.
Well, I will say the vast majority of my clients in the veterinary medicine world, as well as the financial planning world, have been awesome.
If you're interested in financial planning, you probably want to get with a veterinarian specific financial planner who has seen all these scenarios to fast track your learning, to make sure that you're getting the best possible fiduciary advice. You want someone who can integrate your specific student loan game plan with the rest of the topics that we just covered. It's very hard to find that, but I think it is probably one of the most important things you could do. Meredith, if someone wants to reach out to us, if someone wants to ask questions, if someone wants to work with us or just learn more, where should they go?
Yeah, so you can go to slpwealth.com/pod. That's slpwealth.com/pod, or feel free to email us. My email address is meredith@slpwealth.com. And David, what's yours?
Mine is david@slpwealth.com. Super easy.
Until next time, take care and continue your path to financial success. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered individualized financial advice.
If a specific investment is mentioned, it should not be considered a recommendation or endorsement to buy or sell the investment.
All investments involve risk.
Past performance does not guarantee future results. You are encouraged to seek the advice of a financial professional before implementing any investment strategies discussed.
Yay, compliance. You can push the stop button, David.
Okay, just making sure.